On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Cary Grant died in 1986, the result of a sudden stroke while preparing for a public appearance. His passing, though natural, reflected the era's tension between glamour and vulnerability. Grant had long been a symbol of Hollywood elegance, an icon who seemed ageless, composed, and untouchable. That such a figure could be claimed so abruptly by a medical event served as a reminder that even the most polished legends were bound by the frailties of mortality. At the time, Grant was no longer acting, yet his influence remained immense. He had transitioned into a life of selective public engagements, often speaking about Hollywood's past and changing culture. The immediate consequence of his death was a wave of global nostalgia. Fans, critics, and fellow actors mourned not only the man, but also the era he embodied. The golden age of Hollywood, defined by wit, restraint, and sophistication. In the late 20th century, when the industry was shifting toward blockbuster spectacle and louder forms of celebrity, Grant's passing symbolized the end of a more refined cinematic sensibility. His death amplified his legend rather than diminishing it. The contrast between his serene public image and the suddenness of his final day added to the mythos of Cary Grant as someone almost too graceful for the ordinary world. Film retrospectives surged, biographies were reissued, and younger generations discovered his work through classic film programming, preserving his presence in cultural memory. His characters, charming, clever, effortlessly stylish, became templates for on-screen masculinity long after he was gone. The story of Grant's departure invites reflection on how societies preserve figures who represent idealized versions of themselves. We immortalize stars like Grant through restored films, museum exhibitions, documentaries, and ongoing cultural references. His image appears in art, essays, and conversations about the evolution of cinema, reinforcing the idea that certain personalities transcend time because they capture universal aspirations, confidence, charm, and emotional restraint. Ultimately, Grant's death underscores humanity's enduring struggle with the gap between public persona and private vulnerability. We celebrate those who shape our cultural imagination, yet their mortality reminds us that even icons live within the same fragile boundaries as everyone else. Through remembrance, restoration, and retelling, we ensure that such figures continue to illuminate our understanding of beauty, artistry, and the fleeting nature of fame. Natalie Wood died in 1981 under circumstances that remain one of Hollywood's most enduring mysteries. Her passing was officially classified as an accidental drowning, yet lingering questions about what happened on the yacht. She shared with her husband, Robert Wagner, and actor Christopher Walken, have fueled decades of speculation. At a time when the entertainment industry was becoming increasingly driven by celebrity culture and tabloids, Wood's death exposed the growing tension between public fascination and personal privacy. What might have once been mourned quietly in another era became instead a heavily scrutinized media spectacle. In the immediate aftermath, the shock was profound. Wood had been a beloved figure since childhood, transitioning from roles in Miracle on 34th Street and Rebel Without a Cause to mature performances in West Side Story and Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice. Her death halted production of the science fiction film Brainstorm, disrupted studio schedules, and plunged fans into mourning. More significantly, it reignited awareness about safety gaps in maritime guidelines and highlighted how fame could complicate even the most urgent investigations. Questions concerning whether her fall into the water was truly accidental reflected larger cultural anxieties about domestic tensions, celebrity marriages, and the pressures faced by women in the spotlight. Over time, her death amplified her legend rather than settling it. The unresolved nature of the incident turned Wood into a figure suspended between brilliance and tragedy. For many, she became emblematic of Hollywood's darker undercurrent, a place where innocence and ambition were often shadowed by danger. Her life and mysterious end inspired documentaries, books, and renewed public interest whenever law enforcement revisited her case. Reflecting on Wood's passing reveals humanity's deep fascination with the intersection of beauty, talent, and vulnerability. When public figures die under ambiguous circumstances, society tends to fill the silence with stories, interpretations, and symbolism. Wood becomes not only an actress, but also a narrative canvas onto which fears and fantasies are projected. We immortalize her through restored versions of her films, retrospective screenings, biographies, and even artistic tributes that emphasize her expressive eyes and emotional depth. Her death underscores the human desire to understand what cannot be fully known, and the way memory transforms individuals into enduring cultural symbols. Through storytelling, commemoration, and continued curiosity, Natalie Wood remains not just a star of her era, but a reminder of how fragile and mythic the lives of celebrated figures can become. George Harrison died in 2001. His passing the culmination of a long battle with cancer that had followed years of both spiritual searching and physical hardship. His death was, at its core, natural, yet deeply shaped by the pressures and cultural transformations of the 20th century. As the quiet Beatle, Harrison had long embodied the countercultural values of introspection, global awareness, and the search for meaning beyond fame. His struggle with illness reflected the era's growing recognition of the toll taken by relentless celebrity life, as well as the increasing discussion around health, stress, and the vulnerability of even the most iconic figures. In the years leading up to his death, Harrison had also survived a violent home invasion, an event that underscored the rising security concerns faced by high-profile individuals. In an age when fame was becoming more intrusive and the boundary between public and private life thinner, the attack served as a grim reminder that adoration could coexist with danger. His eventual passing, however, was serene, surrounded by loved ones and guided by the spiritual principles he had embraced through Eastern philosophy. The immediate consequences of Harrison's death rippled across the globe. Tributes poured in from fellow musicians, world leaders, and fans who saw him not only as a member of the Beatles, but as a visionary who had introduced Western audiences to Indian music and transcendental meditation. Radio stations dedicated entire days to his music, and countless impromptu gatherings formed in cities worldwide, demonstrating how deeply his ideas of peace, reflection, and artistic fusion had affected multiple generations. For the surviving Beatles, his passing marked the end of an era and renewed public interest in their shared legacy. His death undeniably amplified his legend. While John Lennon's violent assassination had earlier cast a shadow of tragedy over the Beatles' story, Harrison's peaceful departure created a contrasting narrative of acceptance, spirituality, and closure. His legacy expanded beyond rock history, influencing conversations about cultural exchange, the meaning of artistic purpose, and the pursuit of inner harmony. Reflecting on Harrison's passing reveals humanity's enduring desire to find meaning in mortality. We immortalize him through murals, tribute concerts, biographies, and the continued resonance of his songs, especially those that ask deeper questions about life and impermanence. His death invites us to consider how individuals use art and belief to confront the universal certainty of loss, and how memory transforms a life into a lasting symbol of wisdom, creativity, and hope. Dorothy Day died in 1980, passing quietly after years of declining health, a natural death that stood in stark contrast to the restless activism that defined her life. Her final years reflected the physical cost of decades spent in service to the poor, the marginalized, and the forgotten. Living simply among those she helped, she rejected comfort even as age and illness pressed in. Her death in a modest New York Catholic worker house symbolized the very ethos she had championed: solidarity, humility, and a radical commitment to human dignity. Her passing came at a moment when America faced widening economic divisions, rising homelessness, and debates over the moral direction of society. In that context, Day's death became more than the loss of a single figure. It marked the closing of a chapter in 20th century social activism. Her life had embodied the challenge she posed to her own era: to resist consumerism, war, and indifference by practicing a faith rooted in direct service and uncompromising compassion. Her death, quiet but profound, reminded the nation of the values she believed were being lost in the noise of modern life. Immediately after her passing, tributes poured in from religious leaders, labor organizers, and political thinkers who recognized her as one of the most influential American Catholic voices of the century. The Catholic worker movement, which she co-founded, experienced a renewed surge of attention, with many revisiting her writings and the movement's philosophy of voluntary poverty and hospitality. Her death amplified her legend rather than dimming it, prompting conversations about her potential canonization and reinvigorating debates about the place of activism within faith traditions. Her legacy only grew stronger in the decades that followed. Day became a moral touchstone in discussions of social justice, nonviolence, and the intersection of faith and political action. Schools, shelters, and community centers were named in her honor, while her autobiography and journals continued to shape new generations of activists. Through art, biographies, documentaries, and public commemorations, society transformed her life into a symbol of principled resistance and love. Reflecting on her death reveals humanity's enduring longing to reconcile moral conviction with the realities of suffering and inequality. We immortalize figures like Day because they challenge us to see the world differently, to recognize that memory, when anchored in purpose, has the power to inspire justice long after a life has ended. Arlene Dahl died in 2021, passing away from natural causes after a long and accomplished life. And her death reflected a quiet closing to an era shaped by glamour, studio-era discipline, and the evolving representation of women in Hollywood. In many ways, her peaceful departure paralleled the grace and elegance that had defined her career from the late 1940s onward. While she came of age in a time when actresses were often cast as ornaments rather than complex characters, Dahl forged a path as both a screen performer and a successful businesswoman, embodying the mid-century ideal of poised independence. Her death came at a cultural moment when classic Hollywood was being reassessed with new scrutiny, its beauty, its flaws, and its legacy. As film historians and fans reflected on her passing, Dahl's life became a reminder of the craftsmanship and spectacle that defined the Technicolor age. Her work in films like Journey to the Center of the Earth remained emblematic of a period when adventure, fantasy, and melodrama dominated the cinematic imagination. The circumstances of her death, free from scandal or tragedy, reinforced the enduring respect many held for her as one of the last surviving icons of that era. The immediate reaction to her passing was a wave of tributes from both the film community and audiences who had long admired her versatility. Her death served as a cultural marker, emphasizing how few links remained to the golden age of Hollywood. In losing Dahl, the industry lost a living memory of its own evolution, from the studio system to modern entertainment driven by independent talent and shifting social expectations. Her legend, though never centered on controversy or sensationalism, was amplified through renewed interest in her films, interviews, and entrepreneurial work. Many revisited her contributions to beauty and fashion, where she became one of the first actresses to successfully transition into business with her own cosmetics and lingerie lines. This blending of artistry and enterprise positioned her as a quiet pioneer for later generations of celebrity entrepreneurs. Reflecting on her death invites a deeper understanding of how society remembers figures whose lives symbolized aspiration and craftsmanship rather than turbulence. Through retrospectives, restored film prints, and dedicated museum exhibitions, Arlene Dahl is immortalized not just for her beauty, but for her embodiment of a moment in cinematic history defined by color, charisma, and resilience. Her legacy illustrates how memory preserves not just the people themselves, but the values and artistry of the worlds they helped create. Henry Kissinger died in 2023, passing away from natural causes at the age of 100, and his death immediately reignited global debate over one of the most influential and controversial statesmen of the 20th century. The circumstances of his death, peaceful, private, and unmarked by the turbulence that defined much of his public life, stood in stark contrast to the violent international crises he helped navigate and, in some cases, helped ignite. As a figure associated with Cold War realpolitik, his passing symbolized the fading of a generation of policymakers whose worldview had been shaped by global ideological confrontation. The immediate consequences of his death were intense and polarized reactions. World leaders, diplomats, and institutions that had worked alongside him issued tributes, recognizing his intellectual impact on diplomacy, particularly in détente with the Soviet Union and opening dialogue with China. At the same time, human rights activists and scholars revisited long-standing criticisms of his involvement in conflicts such as the Vietnam War, the secret bombings in Southeast Asia, and U.S. support for authoritarian regimes during the 1970s. His death amplified his legend on both ends: admiration for his strategic brilliance and condemnation for the moral costs of his policies. Kissinger's passing also prompted a broader historical reassessment of the era he helped shape. With Cold War politics now studied rather than lived, his role became a lens through which historians analyzed the tension between national interest and ethical responsibility. That he lived long enough to become an advisor to multiple generations of leaders further heightened the sense that his death marked the end of a particular diplomatic philosophy, one grounded in balance of power logic rather than humanitarian priorities. His legacy continues to be immortalized in numerous forms: biographies, academic analyses, documentaries, political memoirs, and ongoing public debate. Museums and archives preserve his papers, allowing scholars to revisit the complexities of his decisions. Through these mediums, Kissinger becomes not just an individual, but a symbol of the paradoxes inherent in global power: the pursuit of stability at the cost of human suffering, the brilliance of strategy shadowed by its consequences, and the enduring question of how history should judge those who wield immense influence. Reflecting on his death underscores humanity's ongoing struggle with how to remember figures whose lives shaped the world in ways both profound and painful. In commemorating such individuals, society engages in a negotiation between memory and morality, revealing our desire to understand not only what they did, but what their legacies say about us. Graham Hill died in 1975 in a sudden and tragic plane crash that instantly ended the life of one of motorsport's most charismatic and resilient figures. The accident occurred while he was piloting his own aircraft, carrying members of his racing team. This violent and unexpected end contrasted sharply with Hill's public image as a master of control on the racetrack and in life, highlighting the inherent dangers that define the racing world of his era. During the 1960s and early 1970s, motorsport was a thrilling but perilous pursuit, and Hill's death underscored the era's fragile relationship between innovation and safety. The immediate consequences reverberated through the Formula One community and the broader racing world. Hill was not only a two-time Formula One world champion, but the only driver to achieve the Triple Crown of motorsport. Victories at the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indianapolis 500, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. His loss meant the disappearance of a living legend who had bridged the gap between old-school bravado and the emerging professionalism in racing. The accident also deeply impacted his team, Embassy Hill, which struggled to continue without its leader and eventually dissolved. His death accelerated conversations about improved safety standards in both racing and private aviation, reflecting a transitional period where the sport was beginning to reckon with the human cost of its high-speed spectacle. Hill's passing did not diminish his legendary stature. Instead, it amplified it. Fans and fellow racers remembered him not only for his achievements, but for his personality, charming, witty, and endlessly determined. His story became emblematic of motorsport's golden age, a time when drivers were heroes navigating the razor's edge between glory and danger. In the decades since, Hill has been immortalized through documentaries, biographies, and tributes, as well as through the continued racing success of his son, Damon Hill, who carried the family legacy into a new, safer era of Formula One. Statues, museum exhibits, and archival footage keep his memory vibrantly alive, framing him as both a pioneer and a symbol of motorsport's evolving relationship with technology, risk, and resilience. His death reveals humanity's complex bond with figures who push boundaries, celebrating their courage while mourning the peril that accompanies greatness. Through remembrance, storytelling, and commemoration, we transform loss into legacy, ensuring that figures like Hill continue to inspire long after the checkered flag has fallen. Heather North passed away in 2017 from natural causes after a long illness, bringing to a close the life of an actress whose voice had become an integral part of American pop culture. Best known as the voice of Daphne Blake in the Scooby-Doo franchise for over 3 decades, North's death reflected a broader theme of her era, the quiet but profound impact of voice actors whose contributions often went unseen but deeply shaped the imaginations of generations. In an entertainment landscape that increasingly celebrated visual celebrities, her passing highlighted the artistic value of those who brought characters to life from behind the microphone. The immediate consequences of her death were felt most strongly in the animation community and among fans who had grown up with Daphne's familiar tone, warm, bright, and fearless. Tributes poured in from colleagues and longtime viewers, many of whom expressed that North's performance had defined their experience of the beloved mystery-solving series. Although her work was not always recognized with the same fanfare as on-camera stars, her passing accelerated conversations about the importance of voice acting and its role in the evolution of children's entertainment from the late 20th century onward. Her death also subtly amplified her legacy, with the Scooby-Doo franchise still relevant and continually rebooted. North's portrayal became a touchstone for what audiences believed Daphne should sound like: confident, stylish, and endlessly optimistic. New generations of voice actors inherited a character shaped in part by North's longevity and consistency, ensuring that her influence would echo long after her final recording session. In reflecting on her life and passing, we see how humanity often memorializes figures whose work forms the backdrop of childhood and cultural memory. While not always celebrated in the spotlight, they become immortal through the characters they build, the lines they speak, and the emotional familiarity they provide. Through documentaries, retrospectives, fan tributes, and archival preservation, North's contributions to animation remain a part of a shared cultural heritage. Her death underscores a timeless truth that power in storytelling is not always found in grand gestures or visible fame, but in the quiet dedication that shapes the stories we carry with us. Even when the voice falls silent, the character and the legacy continues to speak,